Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Franz, Lincoln Park Middle School, and I have a very important lesson for this week for you to listen to and to watch. Hopefully, be able to do both on your screen and listen to me while I speak about it. Okay, let's take a look at a couple things real quick. I'm going to go full screen here. As always, where the mouse is, you'll see a yellow circle moving along. We're going to talk about a topic from history. The topic that we're going to discuss is the Trail of Tears, a very famous event in American history. Not a good event, but a very famous event. Our I can statement, this would be on the whiteboard or it might be on a chalkboard in the classroom normally, is this. I want you to be able to say, I can connect our topic or our theme of integrity with the history of the Trail of Tears. Let's take a look. Stop. Did you watch the video called Trail of Tears Overview? If not, stop and watch that video first. It is 5 minutes long. I cannot show you the whole video here right now, but it should look like what you see on my screen right now. It is called Trail of Tears Overview on the Brian Franz YouTube channel, and it should say Cherokee Trail of Tears basically on it. It is linked on Google Classroom. You should watch it first, in my opinion. Now, I'm going to go on, and I'm going to hope that you've seen that. Let's go full screen here again. So, did you watch it? I hope so. If so, here we go. So, how did this all happen in America? What is it, and how did it happen? In 1830... Congress passed the Indian Removal Act, and we usually call American Indians Native Americans today, but you can say Native Americans and you can say American Indians, and I think you're being respectful to speak that way. So how did that happen, though? I mean, what is it and how did it happen? Well, people from Europe came to North America, and you know what? They wanted more land. They want more room to go to places and do things. Now, Andrew Jackson, he is up here in this corner. You can see his painting. He was the President of the United States. He believed that Native Americans, American Indians, were hindering or holding back the progress of European Americans. And he went to Congress. Congress makes our laws. And he said, hey, can we make a law to remove the Native Americans from their land? Congress said, yes. And in 1830, they made the Indian Removal Act. That's what it was called back then. Look at what it is. I bolded it in number 4. It's the most important one. This law forced Native Americans, or American Indian citizens, if they lived east of the Mississippi River, that's on the map, east is always right. So over in the eastern part of the United States, they had to move to the west. And I want you to remember this part that I'm highlighting right here. The Native Americans were United States citizens like many of us. I know that I am an American citizen and my family is, and many of the students I teach are. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people are. Well, the Native Americans, you might think, well, those are Native Americans. Are they American citizens? At this point, absolutely. This is 1830. They were born, many of them were born, almost all of them, were born in the United States. But they were told, no, you must move west, even though you're an American and you can run for president and vote for president and all that stuff. So American settlers were now free to move into the new territory. I can't imagine how painful it would be to be told, you have to move, even though you're an American and there's no reason for that. Don't think of it like people being deported or illegal aliens. It is not the same. These people that we are speaking of are U.S. citizens, were U.S. citizens 175 years ago. Let's take a look. So the army came in, and tribes were forced to move to what's called the Indian Territory. It's now Oklahoma. I'm circling it over there. Take a look. The blue line is going to be maybe not the most important, but it's going to be the really famous one here. The Cherokee Indians were located where I'm circling. Indian Americans, or American Indians, I should say, back then were not all one group. There were different groups. One group's called Cherokees. They were forced to go up and around and kind of split into different paths here, and forced to go over here against their will. Now, they did not go right away. Of course they didn't just get up and go. They fought it. And one Native American, who you can see right here, John Ross, said, "No, I'm going to go to court. I'm going to fight this. I'm going to do what's right." We're talking about integrity. "I'm going to do what's right, and I'm going to ask the United States to do what is right." He went to the Supreme Court. That's the biggest court in this country, and said, "You cannot move Americans against their will." And you know what? They said, "You're right. It's illegal to force the Cherokees to move." Unbelievable and great news. It's great. The U.S. had integrity there. The Supreme Court had integrity. It said, you cannot move these people. But guess what? You already guessed what, but I'm going to show you. President Jackson ignored the United States Supreme Court and said, "No, I'm going to force the Cherokees to move from their land." So look, in 1830, the Indian Removal Act was passed. That was illegal, but the United States did it. If you take a look, Andrew Jackson in 1835 said, "I don't care what the Supreme Court says. I'm the American president, and I'm going to give 2 years for the Native American Indians to move here." 3 years later, in 1838, I bolded it because it's the main idea. A lot of Cherokee Native Americans did not move, so the U.S. Army came down and forced them to basically march, walk, go on horse, whatever, out of there. And the path that they went on was called the Trail of Tears. Let's take a look. You can see a painting here of it in this corner. The Trail of Tears. Here's an actual marker that you can go see today. It was terrible. It was terrible. The journey to relocate these American Indians, it was 1,000 miles. There was not enough food. Many of our Cherokee Americans, these are U.S. citizens just like me. They died from starvation or thirst or other issues. Disease was a problem. It was freezing cold. Disease spread. People that didn't die from starving died from being ill. A quarter, 25% of the Cherokee Native Americans died on this walk, on this march. That's 1 out of 4. Summary. First of all, look at this painting. It's the most famous one, I think. This is a painting of the Trail of Tears. You can see a woman in the front crying. And if you look back, and I wish, if you've got to Google it, you can see them burying a Native American person, one of their friends or family who died, and various other terrible things happened. This is not a good moment. Okay, let's look at the summary. 60,000 Native American U.S. citizens were forced to leave their home to relocate to what was called the Indian Territory. The journey was not voluntary. They were forced. Many Native Americans that fought it were killed or put in jail. The U.S. government continued to push them in there, and when Oklahoma became a state in 1907, many of them had to move again. I know. How does this fit? Here's that same painting, by the way. How does this fit into the Unit 4 theme of integrity? You've been reading Nothing But the Truth about integrity with Phil and Miss Narwin, and other things as well, I know. Take a moment to review the lesson and ask yourself, in this situation, who showed integrity? Who did not show integrity? Okay, now let's talk about the assignment, because that's what you need to know. Your assignment is to complete a worksheet which will be located under the Classwork tab. You will read 2 short writings about the Trail of Tears and answer questions. Do not forget to push the turn-in button when it's done. You know what? Don't push the turn-in button if it's not done. We have to check every single one, and if you turn it in blank, you're not getting the credit. That's not how it works. Give me just one moment. I want to show you one more thing. By the way, if you have any questions, email your ELA teacher. So if you have Mrs. Stabile, email her, Mrs. Bellimer, Mrs. Cunningham, Mrs. Hall, Mrs. Guyot, or me, of course. If you have me, you already know that. Okay? But let's take a look at one more thing. I want to show you what the assignment is going to look like. It's going to look like this when you open it up. There is one document here and 3 questions. I almost said 4. On the bottom, there's arrows saying there's more on page 2. When I move down, there's a couple of questions here after you read this short little paragraph here. It's not a very long assignment. You'd be doing a lot more if you were back at school with us, of course. I want to tell you, if you have a teacher that is not Mr. Franz, it is possible your assignment is a little different. And if your assignment is different, you need to do what your teacher says. So if you have Mrs. Hall or Mrs. Stabile or Mrs. Bellimer and they give you something slightly different, you need to do that. But I believe that most of us are going to be using the document that you see here. So that's where we're at. A very sad time. Not a good moment in American history, unfortunately. And I hope that this helps you understand a little bit about the Trail of Tears. If you have any questions, you may contact your English teacher, and they will help you, I'm sure, with anything to do with the assignment as well. Have a great day. Have a great week this week. Enjoy nothing but the truth and the other things that we have. Goodbye.